Our next contestant, our next speaker. This is a great pleasure for me to introduce Bobby G. Because Bobby Griffith, he's Jackson Hole ski patroller, works on the forecast team. He might appear in a couple of your favorite bands, but he was in a Pro 2 with me and Christian Santelices last February, and you're required to do a technical report, and he gave this wonderful technical report about this incident that we're about to get immersed in. And I said, Bobby, that was fabulous. Will you do this for WYSAW? And I don't know about that. Let me ask. And so here we are, 6 months later, and it's a distinct honor and pleasure to introduce my friend Bobby G. Yeah. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy.
Hello. Hey. All right, thanks, everybody. Wow, Ren, that was awesome. That was pretty cool. Hard act to follow. But a cool back-to-back set of presentations, I think, because after what we heard this morning, a couple different folks talking about presentations that weren't actually about snow, we're here to talk to you about snow. And specifically, I'm going to talk to you guys about a lot of snow and a really historic storm event that happened here in the Tetons a few years ago, and kind of try to shed some light on what was going on behind the scenes, kind of with the ski patrol up at the mountain while everybody else in the valley was kind of stuck at home. And the storm event I want to talk to you guys about is called the Powerlines storm. So it took place in February of 2017. It was a 10-day snow event. In total, we brought 92 inches of snow. And the really impressive statistic was 11.9 inches of snow water equivalent. That's a ton for this climate. All in all, it was the second largest storm in the history of JHMR. And for those of you guys who aren't familiar with the storm, it's called the Powerline storm because about halfway through the event, right before the weather really ramped up and got significantly more intense, this happened. So all in all, 11 power poles along the village road snapped and blew over, cutting off all power to Teton Village and most of northern Jackson Hole. And that was right before things really got interesting. For some historical context, like I said, this is the second largest storm. The first largest storm that ever happened at the village, what we call the Raymer storm. It took place in a really similar time frame, but back in 1986. That was 12 days long, which brought 110 inches of snow and 12.5 inches of SWE. At that point, sort of ski area management was very, very different, so the tram was closed for around 10 days, and Teton Pass was closed for almost 2 weeks. Now, when it comes to the Jackson Hole Ski Patrol, we remember that storm for kind of two specific incidents that happened. The first one I want to talk about is the biggest avalanche that's ever happened inbounds at Jackson Hole. It started up on the head wall with an artillery shot. This was at the very end of the storm, so you can see the crown line extending. It took out literally the entire head wall. This is before there was a gondola and a restaurant at the bottom of it, thankfully. But it continued all the way down through the amphitheater, put an immense amount of debris in the amphitheater, narrowly missed the bottom of Thunder, but continued on down Dick Stitch, and when it emerged at the bottom of Dick Stitch, it was a nasty wet slide, and it stopped just shy of a couple houses. Both these houses are still there. You fly over them on the tram all the time. So, a really significant avalanche that's remembered to this day. The other event that we remember the storm for was a more tragic one. About halfway through this storm, when the mountain was closed, Ski Patrol was doing avalanche work in the Moran Faces off the Casper Chair, and an avalanche took the life of ski patrolman Tom Raymer. He was kind of a local legend in the valley. It was an incident that really hit the patrol hard. And yeah, we remember Tom to this day. There were a lot of similarities between these two storms, and we were all very well aware of that in the heat of the moment in the Powerline storm. So it caused us all to really focus and really try to act very professionally and safely to get through the whole thing. So before we get to the storm, I want to sort of talk you guys through a little bit of season history that year. This is what the fall of 2016 looked like. Top row is snowfall at Rendezvous Bowl. Oops, let me see. So if you look here, we actually got a bunch of early season snow in October. It's a pretty good amount, but November 1st rolled around, and we had 2-week dry spell, which is good news. At the same time, if you look at the bottom row, that's temperature at the summit of the mountain, so all the way at the top, and the dashed line is freezing, so in that same period, the temperature really rose, and almost all that early season snow melted, which is great news from an avalanche standpoint. Second half of November rolls around, it starts snowing, and by early December, it really started snowing, and we had a lot of continuous snow all through the month of December. So a couple pictures. This is what the mountain looked like when we showed up for ski patrol training that year. As you can see, the only snow on those aspects is on the what man-made snow was left, although it was melting quickly. There was a little bit of snow in high elevation north facing that you can't see in this picture, but most of that snow was melted. But when it finally did start snowing, the skiing got good really quick. This was my first day on snow that year at the end of November up on Teton Pass. And when it did start snowing, those couple places that harbored those October facet layers were pretty active as they are. We saw a couple big avalanches like this one in Cheyenne Bowl, Wally's Slide. This was a 50-pound sled bomb that we deployed in preparation for opening. This is a notorious place for holding October facets. So not necessarily a surprising result, but a very large one. Another notorious place that we have that holds those kind of early season layers is the Expert Chutes north facing, and we saw some pretty big results there that year as well. But it kept snowing all through December, and with continued mitigation efforts, inbounds anyway, we were able to kind of put those early season layers to bed pretty quickly, and the rest of the month really just consisted of pretty good skiing, and things were shaping up really, really nicely. So the new year rolls around, it's January 2017, and this is our snowpack right here. Snow pit dug by my buddy Cronin here, south of the resort. Don't get too into the weeds on it, but as you can see, it's really nice and right side up. No real persistent weak layers, no bad test results. So for early January, this is really a very good pit. A couple weeks later, inbounds in Casper Bowl, we have a really similar situation. No real persistent weak layers, right side up snow, and a 250 centimeter snowpack in January. So really, things are looking really good going into February when the weather really started changing. So I want to talk you guys through the storm. As we go through here, you'll see this will be snowfall in 24 hours and water in 24 hours, and then snow and water storm total. So that'll be kind of adding up. This is the last day with no snowfall and a winter storm warning for the mountain with moist Pacific flow through Saturday. Next day, we got 5 inches. Large low pressure system continuing to feed bands of moisture into early next week. All right, life is pretty good as a skier. 9 more inches, snow heavy at times tonight through Saturday. Things are looking good. Next day, we got 10 inches of grapple, and at this point the skiing is getting good. Sunday, that grapple event continues. We have 11 more inches of grapple. And if you've ever skied 20 inches of grapple, the skiing is getting really good at this point. And the weather forecast is for another Pacific system to impact the region Monday into Tuesday. All right. Monday rolls around. Densities drop. We get 6 inches of powder snow. Periods of snow are going to continue for one more day before a tapering down Wednesday. Okay, we think we might maybe catch our breath a little bit. So, Tuesday rolls around. We have 9 inches of powder snow, making for a 50-inch storm title. And this day, the skiing was truly exceptional. It was one of the best days of skiing in recent memory up at Jackson. It was awesome. Meanwhile, on Teton Pass, that 50 inches had finally added up, and things were getting interesting up there. They had a lot of natural activity, put some trees on the road, and because of that, Highway 22 is closed. What we didn't know at the time is it was going to remain closed for the next 5 days. Meanwhile, in Granite Canyon, at about 1 p.m., we had a skier jump off this rock, land on this tree right here, fracturing both of his legs. As you can see by the weather in the background, this is not a day when TC SAR is going to be able to come in on the helicopter. So this turned into a really long, extended rescue effort involving the ski patrol and the Jenny Light climbing rangers. Could probably do a whole presentation just on what this looked like. But the important thing for you guys to know is that it was a really long rescue. It's probably about 5 hours between the accident and when this guy was in the back of an ambulance at the mouth of Granite Canyon. And during that time, us rescuers back there started to really see an increase in the weather and an increase in winds. We started seeing a ton of spin drift off the cliffs, depositing tons of snow on the traverse out, and we were really ready to get out of there. We finally made it out right about dark. Thankfully, this guy was able to get out in an ambulance down the village road because right after he was able to get out, this happened. So this is just a crappy picture taken by a ski patroller driving down the road. But about 6 p.m. is when the power lines blew down. Like I said, we'd seen a really distinct increase in winds that afternoon, especially on the valley floor. So in the airport and also at our lower mountain anemometer at the village, we saw 61 mile an hour gusts. That's really, really significant for those elevations. You see that on tops of mountains a lot, but for the valley floor, that was really unique. At an unofficial weather station at a home on the village road, they registered an 83 mile an hour gust. That was all accompanied by warming temperatures and freezing rain, which contributed to the power lines going down. So it's now 6 p.m. We have no power at Teton Village. Clearly something that's going to take a long time to fix, and this is our weather forecast. Light scattered snow for Wednesday before intensity ramps up Wednesday night and Thursday with a warming trend to begin tonight. Significant rain into the mid-elevations could occur Thursday. Yikes. Okay, so I want to show you guys this. This is going to be a satellite image from midnight Tuesday morning till midnight Wednesday morning. I want to start by sort of focusing on this right here. This will be the wave of storm that came through Tuesday that made for really good skiing. You'll see it's nice zonal flow, west to east. That makes for good snow. And notice how quickly, it'll loop again, notice how quickly that ejects out of the area. Those were those winds that brought down the power lines. All of a sudden, it's just gone, moving away. Meanwhile, you look out to the ocean. Let me see here. You look out to the ocean. Oh, geez. I won't do that, but this thing is off the coast. This is a classic atmospheric river Pineapple Express situation with a ton of moisture coming from warm South Pacific waters. That is what's waiting to affect us the next few days. So we realize we've got quite a situation on our hands. Wednesday morning dawns, and in Teton County, Wyoming, we got a state of emergency. They were evacuating hotels at the village. They were getting rid of all food and freezers. It was really quite a situation going on. We had no power at the ski area. That meant we had no GASXs at the ski area. At that point, we had 3 GASXs on the head wall. And with our communication systems at the time, we weren't able to talk to them, so they weren't working. We also had no snowcats because the snowcats were pulled off the mountain to go assist with the utilities in scraping the power line zone down to dirt so they could fix something. The first thing that happened that morning is there was a leadership meeting with some of the folks on the patrol and some of the folks at the mountain to sort of discuss next steps. And the decision was made in that meeting to continue doing avalanche hazard mitigation throughout the storm. One theory in an event like this is just to pull back and get away and come back in a few days after everything's happened. But from an avalanche standpoint, being gone for 3 days of control work during a big storm, you're going to come back to a much higher hazard, much more unpredictable and large destructive avalanches that are more dangerous to the worker and more dangerous to the infrastructure in place. So instead, they decided that in the long run, it was actually safer to use the auxiliary engine on the tram, run some limited tram trips, and get workers up there to continue doing control work. So that was the plan. We were going to come back the next morning with a full complement of patrollers and all basically do one run, one very slow, careful run and run through the whole mountain. They did send a couple folks up that day. They ran one of our more consequential routes, and they also kind of inspected some of the lower mountain lift lines to see if there were any trees down or that kind of thing. All the infrastructure was okay. They did find 15% snow, about 11 inches of it that day. And that's what they found. And at this point, we have another weather forecast for warm Pacific system with significant precip, and temperatures are going to reach near 30 on the summits and near 40 in the valleys. So we know the next day we had a really big day ahead of us. Thursday dawns, we still have no power, no GASXs, and 15 more inches of snow with over 2 inches of water. At this point, the rain event really kicked in. This happened from sort of midway down the mountain to the valley floor. It was happening in Jackson. And because of that rain on all that week plus of lots of snow all the way to low elevation, things started really getting interesting. All roads out of Teton County were closed at this point. They shut down the Hoback and Snake River canyons just in time, because when this rain event kicked in, it really triggered an unprecedented wet slide cycle in those canyons. In one day, they documented 23 slides, D3 or greater, that affected those highways. If Jamie Out were here, he could do a whole presentation on his stories from this event as well. On the Bridger Teton Avalanche Center side of things, their hazard rating this day was high at upper elevations and extreme at mid and low. That's really weird to have a higher hazard at low elevations than upper elevations. And this was also the first time in the history of the Avi Center that they called it extreme at low elevations. And this was really all because of that rain. It was really making for a totally unpredictable situation. Unfortunately, there were still some folks out there that wanted to go out in the backcountry and poke around, and we did have a snowmobile fatality that day outside of Alpine. But focusing back into the ski area, like I said, we all showed up dark and early to do one slow, careful round of avalanche mitigation. I was on the bomb crew that morning. I'll always remember building a ton of explosives all through a headlamp because we didn't have any lights to power our prep room. So we built a ton of bombs with headlamps, took them up the tram, and when we got to the top of the tram, it looked like this. This is only 2 days since we'd been there last, and tons of buildup. You know, there were probably somewhere in the vicinity of 50 or 60 ski patrollers on that day, and I think everybody would have a different story of kind of what they experienced out there. But I'm going to try to just focus on what I saw on my route. At that point, I was on what we call Route 8, which addresses the head wall. So the head wall, like I said, has no gas X's to operate on it. You know, for decades, we had artillery to shoot it. Then we had avalanches to shoot it. Then we had gas X's. And at this point, we had none of those. So we knew we had our hands full that day. In order for us to even get to the head wall, some of the upper mountain routes have to go down, do their thing, clear the East Ridge and some of the other zones. On a typical morning, that takes 20 minutes or so. On this day, that took a few hours. And that was great. We wanted everybody to go slow. We weren't trying to open. It was to go slow and be careful. But for those of us up at Mountain Station, we had no power in Mountain Station, so it was cold in there. We did get a little generator in there to run the computer and the radios because we kind of need all that to keep track of the control routes and be in communication with everybody, made for a much bigger margin of safety. And for those of us that were sitting around waiting to go, we were able to pull just a little bit of juice and make a batch of popcorn, try to stay warm. But basically, we hung out up there until somewhere around noon before we were cleared to start working our way to the head wall. When that finally happened, we got up to the head wall. We deployed a whole bunch of explosives from the top of the ridge before we even felt comfortable getting out in there. And once we finally got out into the zone where the gas X's would normally operate, we were able to get some really big results, get a really good avalanche. Now, you really can't see the crown much, but it's basically the horizon line here. And it extended all the way over from that rock knob there, looker's left, all the way over to the next gas X as well. It wasn't a super deep crown, somewhere in the vicinity, 18 inches, maybe 2 feet, but it entrained a ton of snow, went all the way down to the flats, and just barely hit the restaurant. You can see it piled up on some of these glass panes here. It did crack some of the glass panes, but didn't do any other damage to it. I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the big avalanche in 2009 that totally blasted through these windows and filled the dining room up. That was the kind of thing we were really worried about, and part of the reason we wanted to keep doing control through the storm. We didn't want something like that to happen again. So this was a really good result. We knocked a bunch of snow down, got some of the energy out, and didn't really do much damage at all. There's another view of the snow, kind of stopping just short. And if you look right around the corner to a zone we call the Smoker's Slide, we have this pile there. That's probably the biggest pile I've seen on that in my time. It's a pretty small slide path, but it really piled a lot of snow up into the building. All in all, a really successful mission. From there, we continued on down, and pretty shortly below this, we hit the rain line, and the skiing got really bad. And it just became total survival skiing, getting down to the valley floor. But everyone made it down safely. It was a really successful day. And the plan was basically to come back in the morning and do it all over again. Same idea, one slow, long mission. Next morning dawns, and we got 13 more inches of snow with another almost 2 inches of water. Still no power. We were able to get one GASX working. That's great news. That day, throughout the mountain, we saw widespread 2-foot crowns, some 3 to 4 feet. But again, nothing really earth-shattering, which is really great. That means we're doing our job, knocking the snow down, not letting it build up to unmanageable levels. We did start seeing some wet slides below 9,000 feet, but thankfully nothing like they were seeing out in the backcountry. About midday, the Hoback and Snake River Canyons opened. That made the governor really happy, which made Jamie Yount really happy. And we finally had a really nice positive weather forecast with temperatures to cool today, bring the snow line back down, and a break from 9 days of snowfall expected. So we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. We had one really big day of control work still. Up on Route 8, the day before, we'd had those really good results I showed you on the looker's right side of the head wall. The looker's left side had really hung in and been stubborn and hadn't gone anywhere. So we focused on that area with the inspiration and guidance of a patrolman named Rennie Jackson. We put together a special explosive for that zone and were able to get really big results from that. It's really hard to see the crown again because of the light, but it basically took out this whole zone. This is what we call Shot 17. Trail map calls it Coombs. And that put debris all the way down through the headwall gullies and just hit the top of the amphitheater. So those patrolmen there are down at the start of the Naperse Road. That goes out this way. And you can see we had debris kind of right onto the start of the groomer there. And there was debris in the choke of the headwall gullies above that lasted for the rest of the season in there. But again, all in all, successful. We knocked the snow down. Nobody was hurt. We were feeling pretty good. Meanwhile, Snow King's open. There's power in Jackson, but it's raining hard. And midday, this happens. So this was a skier-triggered wet slide in open terrain. There were 2 skiers caught and carried. Thankfully, there were no injuries. A super close call, a really sketchy-looking avalanche, and at this point, Snow King is now closed. Okay, so that's Friday. Saturday dawns. We only have 3 inches of new snow. We have clear skies and cold temperatures. Hallelujah. Power gets restored to Teton Village somewhere in the middle of the day. As well, Teton Pass finally opens back up. Everybody's starting to get caught up. We're starting to come out the other side. For our control routes that day at the mountain, we decided to focus on areas we hadn't been to yet throughout the storm, some of the more obscure zones, such as Saratoga Bowl. We really didn't have a ton of results except in Casper Bowl and the Crags. We got to those areas for the first time in the storm and got some pretty good results. Otherwise, the cold temps had really locked everything up, and we were starting to feel better about the snowpack with dry conditions in store and high pressure building. Like I said, the biggest result we had that day was in Casper Bowl. This is that avalanche. The crown is up at the horizon line. It really took out both of these zones, bigger than it's happened in my career up at the village. And that debris pile here extended way past the Toads Traverse, and those trees and debris were there also for weeks and maybe the rest of the season as well. So really good results triggered by our trolley systems that we have up there. Sunday, for the first time in 10 days, we got 0 inches of fresh snow. Clear skies, and our basic goal that day was just to get ready for opening. We had a ton of work to do that. We had to dig out the whole mountain. We had to reestablish rope lines. We had to dig up tower pads on lift towers. It was just a lot of grunt work to do at that point to get ready for Monday morning. As well, because the utilities were done doing what they needed to do, we got our snowcats back, so they were able to start reestablishing the roads and start grooming again and getting caught up, and dry conditions in store. However, the mountain itself had one last surprise for us at this point. Like I said, the snowcats started cutting the roads. When snowcats come through and cut roads, they push a ton of snow off the edge of the road. Last winter, for those of you guys who are up in the mountain, you might have remembered the big avalanche wet slide in Bernie's Bowl that shut down Bernie's Bowl for the last month of the season. That was from snowcats pushing snow down off the road. Well, when they were working on Rendezvous Trail, pushing snow off the road, they were able to trigger this avalanche here. So this is, again, Cheyenne Bowl, Wally's Slide. This is a zone that had been getting mitigated consistently throughout the storm. We were feeling pretty good about it. You might notice a couple ski tracks for folks that had been through there, but they were able to get this whole big chunk of snow down. Kind of a scary moment. Thankfully, we weren't open. It was just patrollers on the mountain, so we were pretty sure we knew where everybody was and that there was nobody involved. Just in case, we did run one of our Avi dogs through it to do her thing. This is Josie dog. Josie just passed away this summer, so rest in peace, Josie. She was a good girl. Other than that, though, Sunday went off without a hitch, and Monday morning we opened back up, and things were starting to get pretty normal around the county. Meanwhile, up on Tewanot, this is obviously Tewanot in Grand Teton National Park, not the other Tewanot. Once the weather cleared, we got a report of what was probably the biggest avalanche in the area throughout this whole storm. You can see the crown took out most of the east face of Teton right there, sent snow about 4,000 vertical feet to the valley floor, left this debris pile just above Lupin Meadows trailhead, and that was there well into the spring when the road opened. That debris pile was still there. So a really impressive avalanche, some really impressive avalanches all over the region, but within the bounds of Jackson Hole Mountain Resort, we kind of got lucky throughout it and really had good results, as we like to say. So I want to talk about a couple takeaways and some things that we kind of learned and that you guys might be able to take away from this whole thing. Let's start talking about snow, like we said. The big one is the volatility of major warm-ups. I know a lot of you guys probably know that if you've been through these kind of cycles, but anytime the storm starts cold and gets warmer, that's the time that everybody needs to be stepping back, getting more conservative and being careful because it can really lead to some unexpected behavior. On the flip side to that, and a more positive thing that we can take away from that is that at least inbounds at the village where we didn't have a persistent weak layer, I think that really helped contribute to a more manageable avalanche situation. You know, it was a historic storm cycle, but inbounds at Jackson Hole, it really wasn't a historic avalanche cycle. And I think part of that was that lack of a persistent weak layer. Had a storm like this happened last winter with the persistent weak layer that we had, I think it might have been a very different story. I think the other thing that contributed to this not being a historic avalanche cycle was that we were able to maintain control work throughout this whole time. You know, I showed you guys those pictures of the big headwall slide in '86 at the beginning. When that happened, they hadn't shot a howitzer onto the headwall in 8 days. And you saw the results, right? When you can do it every day, make many small avalanches instead of a few big avalanches, when it comes to, you know, the theory behind mitigation work, that's what you're looking for, many small avalanches. So I think the fact that we were able to use that diesel generator and stay on the mountain really contributed to a much safer outcome for everybody. Also, big shout out to the ski patrol for being so flexible and professional with this situation. Everybody really rose to the occasion and put their heads down and knew that it was a really serious and historic thing that was happening. And I think that really helps in these situations. And finally, that last avalanche in Cheyenne Bowl is a reminder that you can never completely eliminate avalanche hazard. Just when you think you have your head wrapped around and you know what's going to happen, Mother Nature throws a surprise at you. So keep that in mind when you're out there, when you're feeling pretty good about your decision making. Just know that you can never totally get rid of that hazard. And finally, the classic question that avalanche professionals like to ask and ski tours can ask each other at the end of the day, you know, the carpenters talked about it this morning. It's that classic question of were we good or were we lucky? I don't really know the answer to that. I think in a lot of ways we were both. I think we were certainly lucky on a couple things, Cheyenne Bowl being an obvious example. But I also think we handled a lot of things really well and contributed to a good positive outcome from some really professional actions that were going on up there. And in the words of our snow safety director, Mike Ream, he said it was one of the proudest moments of his career, both for our team and for the whole company. You know, you really can't train for these kind of historic events, but everyone performed above and beyond, and So, not to toot our own horn a little bit, I'm sure we got lucky in some ways, but maintaining that professionalism when things get weird is key. That's about what I got. I want to throw a couple thank yous specifically to Ream and also to Chris McCollister, who was in the crowd. These guys were the ones throughout the storm taking the numbers, writing the weather forecasts, and doing all the documentation that led me to get all my stuff together. Some other folks that put it together, and that's what I got. Thanks.
So, you want to ask Bobby G questions or you want to go get a beer?
Yes.
Well, Bobby wants to go get a beer, so. No, seriously, any questions? Hey, let's give him a round of applause and a round of applause for our professionals. Jackson Hole Ski Patrol. Yeah. I think that both of these stories are really great encapsulated lessons. It's almost like an avalanche class in a story, in a presentation. So much could be teased out of each one of those stories if you had enough time to spend with them. So, yeah, there's never enough time to really dig in, but I really appreciate the work that you put into this, Bobby. And Ren, whew, buy her a beer, jeez. So, yeah, right, yeah. So let's see, next up, we're only running 3 minutes late because Bobby talks real fast. So we'll start back up again at 2:25, so that's 12 minutes to go get your beer, take a leak, and see you back.